Hello, my sunshines, and welcome to season 2 of your session with me, Dr. Deborah Brown. And we're really excited because this is a new season. We did 20 episodes in season 1, and thank you to everybody who listened and watched and gave us feedback. We appreciate it. So we decided to do something a little different this time. So season 2 is only going to be 4 episodes, and they're going to be for the rest of this year. So we're going to do 2 in October, 1 in November, and 1 in December. And then next year, we're going to start with something kind of new and surprising. So the reason that we're doing it this way is that I wanted to do a short series called the Catalyst series. And the idea is that if we can learn, right? We've learned all about mental health, then we can act. So the idea is I'm going to give you in each episode a few little action items that don't feel hard, that actually you'll be excited about, that you can create change. So Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. So the goal is to use our learning and to use some new learning to get closer to who you really are. And that's not about being like anyone else. It's not about like being fabulous for other people. It's just about really identifying what is it that would make you feel better being on this earth and how do we get there. So what we're doing is we're doing these 4 episodes kind of also around the timing of the end of the year. So this first episode is self-help from seeking to activation. We're going to talk about all the self-help noise out there that I know you're sorting through and talk about how do we actually get any kind of change from that? How do we sort through and what is it that we actually need to change? Number 2 will be about relationships. Are they harmonious or are they helpful? And this is going to give you some real quick ideas about how to check in on your relationships and make sure that they're healthy for you. And if they're not, how to maybe shift them in the right direction, or maybe even make them better if they're good. And the 3rd episode will be holiday stress. Not this year. We're going to do that early in November to get you ready for Thanksgiving and all of the other holidays that follow. Because if you are having the same patterns or avoidance or discomfort around the holidays, whether it's family or money, we're going to make sure that it's different for you this year. We're going to give you some quick action items to do that. And the 4th episode in December will be New Year, less stressed out you. So instead of New Year's resolutions and all that pressure, we're just going to look at how do we get a reset and we start 2026 with different approaches so that the year might be a little less stressful. So why are we doing this, right? Why is this the choice? Why are we only doing 4 instead of 20? And the idea is that I want you to actually feel change. I want you to learn, and we did learn in the first season, but I want you to actually feel what it feels like to have a little small change and how liberating that is, because that can start the ball rolling to even bigger changes and open you up to an even better life than you have right now. So Albert Einstein said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." So that's really what I'm thinking about here is how do we get you to look at something a different way? And the way that we do that is with a catalyst. So a catalyst is defined as an agent that sparks significant change or action. So what I'm going to give you in each episode is 5 or less ideas of how to spark action for yourself. And we are filled with catalysts in our life. We have a lot of bad catalysts, a lot of bad things that happen or negative emotions that come up that carry us in a direction. And what I'm asking you to do is instead of waiting for the bad thing to force you to change, let's instead help you to realize that you're in charge. And that instead of waiting for something to rush upon you and make you change, that you get to be in control of it and you get to make your life a little bit better because you say so. So that's what it's all about. And I have another quote. I am full of them today. Carlos Castaneda. "We either make ourselves miserable or we make ourselves strong. The amount of work is the same." Do you believe that? I do. I know what it was like to have fears of changing. And I thought, that's so hard and I can't change and my life will never be any better. When I was in the throes of mental illness for many, many years, it was very painful and very hard. And I look back now and I realize that was the hardest time of my life. The part where I had to change was hard too, but it was a different kind of hard. So if you're feeling stuck, realize that a lot of that might be your brain. Now, neuroscience tells us that. Neuroscience says that your brain's entire job is to keep you safe, and your brain may fear change and it likes familiar patterns. But what I want you to think about is some of the suffering that we get from that is far less than the suffering that we get from changing. And your brain will tell you that healing is scary. It'll tell you to stay where you are. And I'm asking you to work on changing your brain. And that's really the way that this Catalyst series is going to be operating from, is that we know change is hard, but staying still is harder. So the more you respect and encourage the movement of your brain toward a positive thing, the more your brain will want it. But initially, it's going to resist. So if you can chill your brain out a little bit, and if you can recognize the processes that happen in you automatically, we can begin to make change even when it's hard, because we're going to know that the result is worth it. So think about this one simple thing. When you struggle with something and you go, oh, I can't do it, you have now set your brain in motion. I can't do it. Okay, that's where I am. That's where I live now. But one small change there is I can't do this yet. I can't do this yet doesn't tell you that the door is closed. It tells you that I'm going to get there. So what would you rather do? Shut the door or reassure yourself? That's one small change just off the top of my head that I think works for me. There are a lot of things in my life that I want that I don't have yet. And I think it's the nature of life. I don't think there's ever going to be a time when I wake up and go, yeah, I'm good. I think there's always going to be something that I want or I'm working toward. And one of my big goals is to have a big, beautiful home, right? And for me, that's a goal because I love my family and I'm looking forward to my family growing. And I want to be the place that everybody can come and be together. Now, right now, that's not where I am. And when I'm stuffing the clothes into a small closet or I'm going up terrible steps that I hate, I can say, oh, I can't have a house. This is so unfair. Or I can say, I can't have it yet. And here I am. So I'm going to buy another bin to put the clothes in, or I'm just going to take the steps a little bit slower. But the difference between I can't have that and I can't have it yet is going to affect my mindset and my operating system, and whether or not my brain is feeling negative or positive about my life. And don't I deserve in the meantime to feel positive about my life? Don't you deserve to feel good while you're still in college, while you're still looking for the right job, while you're still looking for the right partner? I don't have it, but I'm going to have it someday. I don't have it yet. Not, I can't get that, right? So I want you to be open and unstuck in that way. And I want you to come with me on this and suspend your judgment and your fear about change for a minute and be open to thinking that maybe one small little phrase like yet could change the way you think. So let's roll in. So in this episode, the title is Self-Help from Seeking to Activation. Activation is the key word here because you can go to any bookstore, any library, and online, and you will find self-help in spades. And it's actually overwhelming. I went to the self-help section in the bookstore the other day, and it was just so overwhelming. All I had to go on was the titles. So I just started looking at titles and seeing what appealed to me. And I found that some of the titles weren't anything really connected to what was even in the book, but it was to grab my attention, right? So a lot of self-help out there is about grabbing your attention and pulling you into an idea. But if the idea doesn't resonate with you, it's useless. So how many times do you buy a book or watch a video and think it's going to change your life? And then it doesn't. And then what do you feel about that? You feel disappointed. The one that I always think about is when people are like, there are 86,400 seconds in a day. What are you going to do with it? And you start going, okay, well, maybe if I sleep a little less or if I take less time eating dinner. And that's a lot of pressure. So what I want this series to be is not some kind of pressure that you're supposed to be getting better and helping yourself every single minute of every day. It's just that insight, when it weighs on you, will freeze you. And yes, if you have insight that you need to grow and change, that's why you're here, of course. But that insight cannot be a pressure or a force that makes you jump into things that don't feel right for you. So I think it does start inside of us, that if we're working on inside of us, we can be more discerning about what outside of us could actually be helpful or what voice we actually want to listen to. Because there are a lot of voices out there, and we talk about it all the time on the podcast. We talk about how you can click on Instagram and there'll be 46 different opinions about one subject. And if you're really not experienced in the self-help world, you could get some really bad information and not know that it's bad information. So the truth about how to help yourself has to come from within first. So I always say that small steps are the way that big changes happen. And I think about the easiest example is smoking. I've worked with people over the years for years quitting smoking, and the only effective treatment that I have seen most of the time is reducing the amount of cigarettes that you smoke. Obvious, duh, right? But I've had people try hypnosis and nicotine patches and all the things. And the most success I've had is when I say to someone, instead of 20 cigarettes this week, you're going to smoke 19. And it's a small change that they don't feel bad about and they actually feel empowered by, and it doesn't hurt, right? And then it's 19 and then 18. And then by the time they get down to 5 or 6, a lot of people quit then. So what I'm saying is this moment could be a catalyst because you might introduce one of these 5 things that I'm going to introduce, and you might feel a tiny bit better, and that might keep things going. And what do we all want? We all want to feel better. We all want to manage our emotions differently. So there was something I did see on Instagram that I really liked, and it was somebody saying, you're not stuck, you're undecided. And I thought, that's brilliant. So I'm going to ask you to make a decision. I'm going to ask you that you're going to listen to these 5 things and that maybe you'll make a decision to implement one of them. You're not stuck. Maybe you're undecided, right? So last quote, I promise, Dr. Edith Eva Eger. She was a Holocaust survivor, and she said a lot of really great things about life and perspective. And she says, the problem and the foundation of our persistent suffering is the belief that discomfort, mistakes, and disappointment signal something about our worth. Think about that. Your emotions tell you about your worth. So if you feel some of those negative emotions, you translate them into what you are. And the words I hear as a therapist very frequently are things like, I'm broken, I'm a mess, I'm lost. What if you're not broken? What if you're not a mess? What if you're not lost? What if you are just figuring it out like every other human on the earth? And you need to give yourself some grace to realize that this process of being a healthy, happy human is a decades-long process. What if we just dispel all the ideas about worth and emotions and separate them? And you can feel broken, but you are not broken. And I think it's an important distinction because as a person in recovery from mental illness, I felt for a very long time that mental illness branded me as something. I had to walk amongst people who knew about my hospitalization or my suicide attempt, and I felt that they looked at me as less than. So what happened? In my recovery, I got smaller. I became less than. And I realized that was just confirming what all those people kind of put on me, was that somehow if you're broken, you don't get to have a good life. So do you see the power of broken? So now I don't look at my life and go, ugh, I'm broken. I have scars, right? Now I go, God, that was hard. I went through some rough times and I really felt broken, felt like a mess. But I'm not a mess and I'm not broken. And I'm a product of all of that. And I want to make sure that you're saying that to yourself instead of, I'm broken. I feel broken, right? There's a small change. A feeling is not who you are. A feeling is transient. And I think there's a fun example of this when I think about how we view ourselves is things like arts, singing, drawing, writing. A lot of people crave doing these things, but they're afraid to do them because they feel like they're not going to be good at it. So they already have an idea in their mind that they have to be good at something in order to experience it, right? I can't take singing lessons. I'm terrible. I can't sing. I'm not good at it. So why do it? I think life is like that. To be honest, I don't think most of us are good at it. I'm not good at it every day. And you don't have to be good at it to try it. And how many times have somebody dragged you to something that you really didn't want to go to, and then you had a great time? And I remember when I was a kindergarten teacher many years ago, and kids would say, I can't sing. And I would say, everybody can sing, because it was true. Everybody can sing. Whether or not they should be recorded and we want to listen to them is a whole different issue. But I think life is like that. I don't think that you should be not doing things because you feel like you won't do them well. I want you to do them badly. I want you to try them badly. Someone just said to me the other day that they wanted to take a glass blowing class. And I laughed out loud because I pictured my clumsy self burning myself with molten glass stuck all over my body. And I went, oh, I can't do that. And then instantly recovered and went, that might be a lot of fun, because even if the worst thing that happens is I have glass all over and it's terrible, I will still have had an experience and I didn't have to be good at it. So I want you to think about that. What things are you not doing because your mind tells you you won't do them good enough? And it could be something as silly as a class, or something as big as going to college or changing jobs. And even bigger, like partnership. So there are a lot of things that people hesitate from because they don't believe they can. And the only way that we believe that we can is by trying. So I'm going to jump into the 5 things that I'm going to ask you to try. And the 5 things are 5 areas of your life that I believe almost everyone could do a tiny bit of work on. Now, one of these things may resonate with you, some may not, but I want you to think about the things that do and why they do, because that's going to tell you where your work is. And we all have work. I can tell you, I am working on a few of these things myself right now. And I'm so proud that I am, because none of us have to be perfect. So number 1, stop poisoning yourself. Sounds crazy, but it's true. I think that we do a lot of internal talking and a lot of behaviors that poison us, right? I remember walking through an event this weekend, and there were people smoking, and the person with me said, are people still smoking? And then we all laughed because we all used to smoke. And it was that funny thing about, we woke up and realized that we were poisoning ourselves. And why would anybody do that? Easy for us to see because we're not doing it anymore, but harder to look at yourself and go, how am I poisoning myself right now? So we do that by confirming our weaknesses and ignoring our strengths. Okay. So if someone is not guiding themselves toward the right thing, but guiding themselves toward the wrong things, they're poisoning themselves. If you know you're lactose intolerant and you eat ice cream and it's going to give you a bellyache, then you know you shouldn't eat ice cream. You're poisoning yourself, right? Silly example, but I think there are bigger things that we do emotionally. And it's almost like what we talked about a minute ago. Using certain words to describe yourself is poisoning yourself. I am broken. You say that every single day, and you eventually become that. You're poisoning your own thoughts. What we're supposed to do is be our own guide. to guide ourselves toward the things that we want, to gently and kindly use our self-talk to take ourselves in the directions we want to go. If you are eating too much ice cream, then maybe one day a week you don't eat ice cream. You guide yourself toward where you want to be, and then you are kind to yourself while you're getting there. Imagine that. I see so many people on weight loss and fitness journeys who are so hateful to themselves during the process. And I've said it before on this podcast, you can't hate yourself into change. So you have to stop poisoning yourself, because you will sabotage the things that you want to do by poisoning yourself against yourself. If you can't be your own guide, then who can be? The most powerful guides don't come from outside of us. They come from our own voice and our own self-talk. And until you change that, everything you say, you're hearing. Everything you say, and your body hears it. So be mindful that you're not poisoning yourself. So the change that I'm going to ask you, the action item that I'm going to ask you to take from number 1 is, I can't yet. Okay? And we started to talk about that earlier, but this is your action item. Anything that you are trying to do, anything that you have not achieved, or that you don't feel is good enough, or a weakness about yourself, you're allowed to have those feelings. Okay? You are allowed to look at yourself and say, I'm weak in this area. This is my weakness. We all have them. That's just the truth. But what you have to do is be able to acknowledge the weakness as either something you have to adapt to or that you have to change. I can't yet, right? If your body is not where you want it to be, I can't run a marathon yet, if that's what you want to do. And you don't have to run a marathon. You can be happy either way. But I want you to add the word yet to anything that you perceive as a weakness or a self-criticism, because there are some things we have to accept and there are some things that we can work on. But the things that we're working on can't be that thing that holds us back from the rest of our life. I can't date until my body is fit. Oof. Okay. If that's the way you want to do it, I can't date yet, but I will, rather than I'm not worthy of dating. So I like you to think about the word yet and connect that to your examination of, are you poisoning yourself? I can't. I'm not. Because what does that translate to? I'm not good enough, which is a very poisonous thought. You were born good enough. That is just a fact. You have strengths besides your weaknesses. And if you can't identify your own strengths, the odds are you're probably poisoning yourself. There's a fun exercise. Identify your strengths. Number 2, connect to what you want. A lot of the world outside of us tells us what we want and what we should be. And you don't always really know. Sometimes what you want is dictated by what's around you. I think of families where children go into the family business, or a family of doctors where the child becomes a doctor. And I always wonder in the back of my mind, did they do that because it was always the way the expectation was? Or did they do that because that was what they really wanted? And I always am curious about that. And I think you can extend that out to almost everything. Do you wear the clothes that you wear because it's what you want? Or do you wear the clothes you wear because you think it's what makes you fit into the world? So you can't know the answers to any of that until you identify what you want. And this is really kind of fun if you think about it. And if you think about it from, if there were no restrictions, if there were no limits, if there were no guides, what would you be like? If you didn't have to fit in, what would you be like? If you could wear whatever you wanted to work, what would you wear, right? So think about it as you have to connect to what you really want and what you really are in order to put that out into the world. But a lot of us don't really identify it. They just feel like they're on a treadmill and I'm just doing all the things I have to do, which is true. We always have things we have to do. So one of the best ways to connect to what you want is to think about, targets and goals, right? And everybody hates talking about targets and goals. They're all the things I should be doing and I'm not doing. I'm just asking you to take that day by day. So think of it this way. Everything that you say out loud about what you are and what you want, your brain hears. And when you first say it, your brain will react against it if it's different than what you normally feel. But what if you said it every single day, right? What if you said that goal or that thing every single day? I had one person and her thing is she would wake up in the morning and she's like, I'm not taking any grief from anybody today. And it was kind of funny, but it was actually really helpful because she was learning how to be assertive, right? So that was important for her to stand up every morning and go, I'm not taking any grief from anybody today. And it was the start of a change that she needed to make to be more assertive. So think about, what would you want to be different about your life that you feel like you might not have control over? And it could be anything. And the change I'm asking you to make, or the action I'm asking you to try, is to state that goal aloud in the AM. Sounds crazy because you're talking to yourself out loud and there might be other people there, but I want you to do it. And this is the action item, is to wake up every day and say the thing. And we've talked about it before in the podcast where we've said, if you wake up in the morning, you determine your attitude, right? But what I'm asking you to do is to allow your brain to hear that out loud, because it's actually proven by neuroscience that the things that leave us and we say out loud, our brain hears differently than it hears inside your head. So the simplest example is, if I wake up and I feel like garbage and I sit on the edge of the bed and I feel like garbage and I don't want to get a shower and all of that, I can say, today I'm going to kill it. Or today I'm going to get through. But whatever it is, I want you to say it out loud. Now, this might feel very strange in the beginning because you're going to think it's silly, right? The first time I did it, I thought it was silly. But now I know that that's how I set the tone for my day. So when I wake up like everybody else, it's cold, it's miserable, your body aches, the whole deal. But what if when I woke up every day, I said something different than that? And I do. And you say, today I'm going to do really well at blank. And you say that. I want you to really try it. And I want you not just to think, oh, that won't work for me. I want you to try it. And if you do that 5 days in a row, you will actually begin to connect to what you want as an option, because people feel trapped in their lives. And it's time for us to stop feeling trapped. The other part of that, and the other possible action item, is that neuroscience also tells us that if you visualize an emotion in your head for 17 seconds, that you actually can begin to feel that emotion. So if you visualize that emotion for 17 seconds, I'm going to give you an example. For those of you who are seeing the video, there's this really beautiful picture behind me. And the picture is a mural, and I love it because it's this beautiful mystical place that doesn't exist, but it's so pretty. And if I stared at that mural and visualized in my head that I were there for 17 seconds, I would get a sense of calm because the mural resonates with me, right? Did you ever go to a museum and look at an art piece or anything that you could sort of take in, the nature, anything, and it makes you feel different? Why do we like to go out in nature? Because nature is proven to change the emotional landscape that we have, right? So anything that you can visualize for 17 seconds can give you the feeling that you want to have. So connect those two things together, right? If you get stuck in a negative place that is sort of like, I don't have what I want, you perpetuate that. So I'm asking you instead to say, I am going to kill it today, or whatever you want to say. But that's your action item, is to wake up and say out loud the feeling you desire to have. So number 3, stop running from your feelings. Everybody does this. I do it, but I'm working on it. There are certain feelings that we do not want to have, and we run from them. And I need you to think about this and identify this. There are the ugly feelings that are really bad and nobody wants, rejection, embarrassment, shame, abandonment. You will have those feelings probably at least once in your life, okay? And if you're really unlucky, you'll have them a lot. But most humans have them a lot, but they don't have them every day. So what we do is when we feel them, because they're unusual for most of us, we want to run from them and we want to hide. This is why addiction is such a problem. Is addiction is a way of hiding from painful emotions. There are probably no heroin addicts on the street right now that came from perfect, happy lives, right? They're hiding from an emotion and the drug helps them to do that. Your brain likes quick relief. This is why scrolling works. We like our dopamine and we get it in all kinds of places. But did you ever tell yourself, I'm going to get offline in 20 minutes, and then you don't, right? And you end up scrolling for 2 hours. And the reason is that your brain is riding the wave. It is your brain. It is your dopamine. It is all the happy chemicals, because scrolling is an escape from all your feelings. All you have to do is observe what's outside of you. So what I'm asking you to do is to feel the feelings. It's horrible, right? It's scary. But you have survived 100% of your bad days, right? Everybody's heard that. And the idea is there is wisdom on the other side of those feelings. And every human on the earth has to have them at one time or another. So hiding from the feelings, you actually are more likely to have the feeling again because you haven't noticed what caused it. You haven't told yourself that you can make yourself feel better about it. And you are not regulating yourself. So 3, stop running from feelings means that you have to acknowledge that these feelings are hard, but that they're normal and that other people feel them and that you are not the feeling. If your feeling is abandonment, a lot of abandonment is not your fault. It's the behavior of other people. If you're feeling shame, shame should be temporary and move along, right? So if you're not understanding those feelings, processing and sitting with those feelings, they're going to come back. And they're going to keep coming back until eventually you have to face them. People say that about therapy, that's why therapy is hard, is because they have to sit and talk about these hard things. That's what it is. They have to sit in the feelings. Now, I know that the only way out is through them, and I guide people through that. And I'm not saying that you need to do this alone. But what I am saying is that there is a way to view this. And here's your action item. Is when you feel these things, you have to be able to say, these are normal, and this may take some time. So that's a gift, to be able to give yourself in a terrible feeling the idea that it's normal and that other people have it and that it's going to go away, but it's going to take some time. So it's almost like when you have a bad feeling that you parent yourself and you say, this could take some time, but I'll be okay. It seems quite simple, but it's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement that bad things can happen and they're going to happen and that you will survive them, but it's going to take some time. I always think of the analogy of a flat tire. We all drive our cars around, and I would bet any one of you that I talk to could identify a moment when you had a flat tire. I've had a few, probably 5, 6, right? And I know that when I drive my car, a flat tire is a possibility. But I also know that most of the time I drive my car, I'm not going to get a flat tire. But when you get it, oh, it's awful. You have to sit on the side of the road. You have to change the tire, get somebody to change the tire, wait for AAA. And then even after all that, you've been delayed. And then when you get back on the road, you have to explain what happened. And then after that, you have to get the tire fixed. And that's a whole thing, time and money that nobody has. But guess what? If you drive a car, I promise you, some point in your life, you will get a flat tire. And you have to know that. And when you get the flat tire, you're not going to go, this is so hard and this is terrible. There's something wrong with me. You're going to say, this is a flat tire and it's going to take some time, but I'll be back to normal, right? I think that those dark feelings are like flat tires. I think they're unavoidable and they're inevitable. And if you look at them as if you're driving around with a flat tire, you're going to get a flat tire every time you get in the car. It's really very difficult, and you give yourself a mountain to climb. I'm asking you instead that your action item here is to be able to say to yourself in a dark emotion, this may take some time, but I'll get out on the other side of it. Okay, so stop running from your feelings. Number 4, be more self-oriented. We've talked about this a whole lot, but I'm going to give you a little bit of an action item here that's going to make it a little different. We need to stop living for the comfort of others, right? You don't exist to make everybody around you happy and comfortable. You don't exist to not provoke feelings in people. You have to stop getting used to being uncomfortable. And I want you to notice that about yourself. You are probably very used to being uncomfortable more than you should be. Most of us are. The people that are the kind, caring, empathic, growth-oriented people tend to be the people that are most good with being uncomfortable. There are times in your life that you need to be uncomfortable, but not every day. And not to be so honed in on what everybody else is feeling that you're missing what you're feeling. That's what self-oriented means for this, is what I'm saying to you is self-oriented means that you are assessing your feelings in any situation and going accordingly, and not assessing what other people around you are feeling as the most important data to collect. So there's a lot of talk now about imposter syndrome and masking and being someone you're not. And I think that's really about that we're conditioned to believe that we have to be humble and modest, and that makes us likable, right? Don't get too big because then people won't like you. Don't get too powerful. People won't want that. That'll make them uncomfortable. And that's what I think imposter syndrome is. I see it with a lot of our new therapists here at our practice, is that they're very young and they haven't had a whole lot of life experience, and they have someone in front of them who's double their age. And suddenly they have imposter syndrome. What can I bring this person? Well, the truth of it is you were in school for 7 years. You've had all kinds of training. You absolutely bring something to this person. But I think that there is an inherent humility and modesty that comes with, if I'm younger than them, I have to behave a certain way. Well, we need to blow that up. I've learned a whole lot from people younger than me. What about you? So I think that there's this thing about making ourselves smaller and calling it imposter syndrome, when actually humility isn't what makes us likable. It's only a part of it. Yes, have humility, please. But what makes you likable is being the actual self-oriented you. I think of the example of the butterfly, right? When you are out in the world, what happens when you see a butterfly? For most of us, everything stops and you go, oh my God, look, and you point it out and it's beautiful, and you look at the color and you remark on it. Look at that. That's a monarch. Look at the orange. Isn't that beautiful? Haven't seen one of those in a while. Everything else goes away and you look at the butterfly. Do you do that? I do, right? There's a reason that we do that. Is because we're walking through our world and something beautiful and colorful showed up and we admired it, right? That, I believe, is the healthy approach to people. If I walk down the street and I see something beautiful and colorful in a person, I look at that and I go, wow, look at that. That person is doing them, right? That green hair, they are rocking it, right? They're being them. And I think that's a shift that I think is happening in society. I'm seeing more and more, especially younger people, being attracted to the unique and different, instead of that assimilation that was expected of us for so long, that we all had to look the same or be the same. But being self-oriented means I feel like having green hair, so I'm going to have green hair because of the way it makes me feel, not because of anyone else's reaction to it. So we have to eliminate some words here. There are some words we have to take out of our vocabulary. One of them is modesty. Modesty sounds to me like something that you would tell a Victorian girl in the 1800s, right? You must be modest. So modest says Be smaller, quieter, and less you. So the word modesty doesn't fit anymore. Self-oriented people are not modest. They are true. Okay. Another one is vanity. This is a big one. I have women that talk to me all the time in therapy about things like plastic surgery or fitness, or things about their body, their hair. And they'll say, but my mother says I'm vain. Vanity is also an outdated word we have to get rid of. You taking care of yourself and making yourself look the way you want is about being self-oriented. Now, whether that means that you shave your head or that you get false eyelashes, it's irrelevant. Vanity is a word that says that caring about the way that you look is wrong. And I believe that's a word that we need to get rid of. It doesn't fit anymore. I want you to care about the way you look, only in that you look the way that your self-oriented heart tells you. And I don't want you walking around wearing a uniform that somebody else created for you. So be self-oriented. And the very big intentional thing that I want you to think about from an action standpoint, this is big. This isn't a tiny little action item. I might have lied. They're not all tiny. This one is the idea that the way you move your body through the world is directly related to how self-oriented you are. And I'll tell you what I mean is, did you ever notice somebody who kind of walks to the beat of their own drum? They're not running when other people are running. They're moving more slowly. And I read something that said that slow, intentional movement conveys something about you. And I thought, oh God, I got to stop running around like a nut. I run around the office like doing this and doing that. And they said that creates an image that you are not grounded. And people innately receive that image as that you don't have it together. You're not connected to yourself. And I really thought about that. And I thought, think about the teachers and the things that we learn from. The people that we respect are not people who are necessarily wiggling around. They're people that are conveying something with their bodies and the way they move. I always think of Eckhart Tolle, and we've talked about him before. He's a great voice in mindfulness. And when you watch him, he's like a turtle. Everything he does is so slow and deliberate. And it catches your eye because you believe that everything that he's doing is intentional and thoughtful in himself. He's thinking about it in himself. And I think about that. So your action item here is, how do you move through the world? Are you moving in a way that's self-oriented? Are you moving in a way that you are listening to what's inside of you? Or are you moving and acting physically and emotionally in a way that is about pleasing your environment or fitting into your environment? Right? If you're a person who enjoys silence, are you talking at times you don't really have anything to say? So think about your body movement. There's a lot of work in psychology about the physicality of our bodies and how we move and how that shows our mental state, right? If you have a twitch or a tremor because you're nervous, it's a great example of that. But if you even look at people, there are people that are hunched over. There are people that have their arms in certain positions. The FBI uses all of this stuff for just sort of how they read bodies when people are interviewing, but there's real science behind it. The way that you move your body should reflect the way that you feel about your world, and it should not be in consideration of everything around you, but rather what's inside of you. That's a big change. So think about it. Number 5, the last one, understand your why. Okay? Understand your why. Every single thing that you do in your life comes from something, right? Could be an impulse. It could be a deep-rooted belief, but understand why you do what you do, and especially the things that you don't like. the things that you want to change about yourself. Understand why you do them in the first place. Let's go back to smoking. Why did you start smoking if you smoke? There was probably a why. In my case, I was young and everybody else was smoking, right? I quit years ago because I realized it just didn't fit. I didn't like it. It wasn't who I was, right? But there was a why. I did it because other people did it and I was young and impressionable. The reason that a lot of people start. But there's a why behind everything. So your full self acceptance will come when you can really understand why you do a thing instead of judging yourself for doing it. So we need to acknowledge why maybe we never cared for ourselves the way we should, or why we behave the way we behave. And it can be big things or it can be little things. Why do I always leave the cabinet doors open in the kitchen? I don't know, because I developed a bad pattern. That's my why. How do I undo it? I start shutting them, right? That's a little why. But think about a big why, like what we just talked about. Why is it that I keep cutting my hair off when I want long hair, right? And there are big whys behind that. I'm trying to be smaller. I'm trying to not draw attention to myself. I don't want to be attractive. Well, why, right? So I want you to think about the fact that everything you do has either a little why or a big why. And the little whys are kind of fun. Why do I always say that? Oh, I guess I won't say that anymore. But the bigger whys are harder to conquer. And this is what I think therapy is. Therapy is about finding the big whys so that you can change those things about yourself that you want to change. You always have to understand why you do it in the first place before the change can be really effective in the big whys. The little whys are easier. And there are lots of ways to do it. I mean, I will always recommend therapy because I believe that exploring these whys gives you this insight. You have people in your life that you know so well, but I want you to know yourself that well. And this is what I think it is. Therapy is a great way to get to know yourself, but there are lots of other ways to do it too. Let's say that you have a habit that you don't really like. Let's say that you can't take a compliment, for example. Then journal it. Get a little piece of paper and a pen and say, why can't I take a compliment? Because it makes me feel like this. Why does it make me feel like this? Because of this, right? Explore your whys, ask yourself the question, and dig deep. And some people do that really well on their own. I have people in therapy that I can give them a topic and they'll come back to me with all kinds of insight because they focus their attention on it. And then I have other people that need to do it with me side by side and I guide it. But either way, understand your whys one way or another. Journaling, therapy, conversations are beautiful. I've had so many deep conversations with people close to me where I learned something about myself because I share something vulnerable. So those are some of the quick and easy ways, but maybe not easy, quick ways. But the action item I'm going to give you today is works for the big whys and the little whys. And the action item here is a fundamental element of what we call cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy says that there are three parts to a human in the way that they live in the world. And the three parts are thought, feeling, and behavior. And everything that we do as we move through the world starts with a thought in our brain. Most things, there's some automatic stuff, but not much. Starts with a thought in our brain. The thought in our brain creates the feeling, and the feeling causes the behavior. So if you separate, this is going to be your little action item. Separate something that happens into what was the thought, what was the feeling, and what was the behavior. And when you do that, you start to see the whys. So let's take an example. So you go out with a friend who berates you and makes you uncomfortable. You keep doing it. And you go out and they start in on you. And what's the thought? Here they go again. What's the feeling? I don't like the way this feels. This makes me feel small. And what's the behavior? I get quiet. So the thought and the feeling behavior all have errors. Do you hear it? Right? So, what if we switched it up? What if we examined that after the fact? What if we went home and said, okay, she made me feel like crap again. Let's take it apart. The thought, here she goes again, picking on my body. There's the thought, right? And what if we take that apart? Well, is she allowed to make me feel that way, right? Because what's the feeling? I feel shameful. I'm not as pretty as her, right? So if you take it apart and go, she makes me feel shameful. Oof, people shouldn't be allowed to do that. And the behavior is I get smaller. So it seems pretty obvious there what we need to do. We need to change the behavior. And then eventually we won't go through that thought, feeling, behavior cycle. But just examining it that way helps you to look after the fact at a why. There's a reason why you don't like hanging out with that girl. She gives you a nasty feeling and makes you end up behaving small. So any situation that you're in, you could just take that simple formula, thought, feeling, behavior, after the fact and use it as a way to understand your why. Because you don't just behave for no reason. You don't just do things randomly. Very few things about our behavior are random. Most of them come from a feeling that we get, and the feeling comes from the thought. And a lot of that is that brain pattern again. Automatically, I get that thought and I go down a path. And smoking is that great one again. I want a cigarette. Okay, boom, thought, feeling, behavior. You go smoke, right? But what if you put a little space in between those and you kind of separate them out and understand them as 3 separate steps? So your little action item is the next time you have a situation that you don't understand why I behave that way or why do I keep doing this, take that thought, feeling, behavior and sit with it just 5 minutes and you can understand a why about yourself. So all of these 5 things that we talked about today are big things, right? But the action that I asked you to take is small in each one of them. And imagine, what if each one of these things started to feel better, right? And we're going to look at them just one more time. I'm going to say each thing. Number 1, stop poisoning yourself. Number 2, connect to what you want. Number 3, stop running from feelings. Number 4, be more self-oriented. And number 5, understand your why. What if each one of those things got a little bit better? What if one small action item started a ball rolling for you where you got a little better at each one of those things? That feels like a good life and it feels lighter. And that's really what I'm trying to do with you today. Activate some small change that makes you feel a little lighter and stop carrying things that you don't need to carry anymore. Things like negative feelings, negative beliefs, and negative self-talk that make your day harder, your life harder, and make things more complicated for you. You got one shot, right? One life. Let's make it a little bit better. And one little step in the right direction can do that. So hopefully it was a catalyst. Hopefully this gets you thinking. Pick one thing and try it and see. And I would love it if you experience any change or any of this has an effect, that you message us and you tell us about it. Tell us what worked. Tell us which of these 5 things resonated with you, because I would love to hear that. And I would love to hear that we're on target with giving you the things that you might want to hear in our podcast. So I am looking forward to season 2, and I'm looking forward to sharing these 4 episodes with you and giving you these little bits of something that could be a catalyst for your life getting even better. So my sunshines, thank you for coming and for growing, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.